Hi, this is Joe Navarro, and welcome back to People Watching. Today, once again, I'm going to be talking about a very serious topic, and it's one that I addressed in my book, Dangerous Personalities. And the topic is social predators. Now, I got a lot of questions when the book came out. People were asking me, well, why did you use that term? Why didn't you use psychopath or sociopath or antisocial personality disorder? Well, one of the things that I always keep in mind is who the reader will be. Most people, and you have to remember that the book was written from the perspective of victims that I had interviewed over 2 decades. Most of them don't know the difference between sociopathy, psychopathy, and antisocial personality disorder. In fact, a lot of clinicians don't know the difference. And so I decided to use a term that was universal, that people clearly understood. Predators, predation, social predators, and so it stuck. But as I addressed this with victims over the years, I assure you, no one ever stopped to wonder, well, is this a psychopath or a sociopath? That's what researchers look at. That's what clinicians look at. For you and me, if somebody has a knife to our neck, we don't care if it's a psychopath or a sociopath. The only thing that matters is the behaviors that took advantage of us. And those behaviors of the antisocial, of the psychopath, were grouped together in something that could be universally understood. And that was social predators. Whether it's Bernard Madoff taking advantage of investors, or it is someone like a psychopath, such as Ted Bundy, who was a serial killer. In essence, what we're looking at is social predation. And for all of us who have to live and experience these individuals, what matters is their behavior. And that's what I want to share with you today, is what traits do they have in common? And in Dangerous Personalities, there's over 120 traits that these individuals share. And if you see the commonality of it and you say, oh my gosh, I know people that are like this. I've been in the presence of somebody like this. You may even have dated or married one. You realize the danger that they pose for society, because these individuals who exist among us violate all rules. Rules do not apply to them. Norms do not apply to them. They feel entitled. They feel like they can get away with anything. And whether it's innate in their character or they have learned this from watching others, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that you will be victimized physically, mentally, emotionally, perhaps even financially, but definitely psychologically. And this is the robust message that I got over and over from the victims. For these individuals, laws don't mean anything. They're just a minor impediment. They will find ways to break them, or they just don't care. You know, over and over you hear people, well, we need a law for that or a law for this. And I say to people, you know, there's laws for bank robbery, but banks get robbed, all the time. There's hundreds of bank robberies almost every day nationwide. Well, why is that? Because you have people that are social predators who don't care about the laws, and they only care about themselves. And that's one of the main features of the social predator, is they're constantly thinking about themselves. They may say, well, I'm doing this for my family, or they may claim that I'm entitled to this because society did this or did that. The bottom line is they only care about themselves. They tend to discard others. They tend to place others in danger. They sometimes get people to violate the law and put themselves in peril. How many times have we read about somebody who got a friend to drive them, and in fact, the whole time they were driving them transporting drugs, or they drove them to a bank to rob that bank? So they have no hesitation in putting other people in peril. They have no hesitation in taking your money. There is no remorse. And I will say this over and over again. These people sleep very well. They don't care. Habitually, they like to take shortcuts. And by that I mean they may cheat on tests. They may decide not to pay taxes. They will cheat on things like their taxes, or they may just out and out lie on a loan application, imperiling themselves, or they promise to pay something back. You see this all the time. They tell their parents, hey, I got jammed up. Can you pay bail? I promise to pay you back. And then they skip town. And then the parents are stuck with paying this humongous bill. These are people that live on the edge of society when it comes to morals and character. When I talk about that they only care about themselves, that doesn't mean that they won't come home and help pay the bills and so forth. But when there is an outside stressor, when things are bad, when there is conflict, when all of a sudden it's, I'll either feed me or I'll feed all of you, they only care about themselves. And they don't hesitate to hurt others. Now, as I said, you can be victimized in many ways, and just think of being victimized as getting hurt. And I hear this all the time of people who dated a social predator. He never paid for anything. He insisted that I pay for everything. At the end of the day, I lent him money. He never paid him back, and then he was gone. Nothing new there. There's your social predator. How many times have I heard this story over and over from the victims? Or they're married to one, and he controlled all the money in the family, and then he leaves and there's nothing in the bank account. And this can be even with children in the family. A 63-year-old woman I talk about in the book, whose son cleaned her out of all her money, all of it. Took it all. And now, at this stage in her life, she now has to go back to work. Hurting others for the social predator is not a problem. And that's something a lot of people don't understand, because most of us don't think like a predator. Most of us don't act like a social predator. Most of us can't even conceive of this. I still have guilt feelings over things I did in grade school. But that's what a conscience does. Well, that's what a conscience does. When you have no conscience, you don't care. And that's what a lot of people have difficulty with. And unfortunately, many of us grew up with the concept that we must always forgive. Here's my thoughts on that. That's great if you're dealing with normal people. When you're dealing with social predators, you're just inviting more bad behavior. Social predators know how to exploit others easily. They have a sense of your exploitable weaknesses, and it may be the fact that you need something, that you're frail, that maybe you're elderly, whatever. They will take advantage of you because they don't respect human rights. They see a young woman walking by herself late at night. The social predator is not thinking about her well-being, but rather about the ideal situation where they can take advantage of this individual. And that's the difference with social predators. They are indifferent to the suffering of others. So all that pleading that you often see, and it's very sad. I often see victims testifying in court and family testifying before sentencing. And let me tell you, when you're dealing with a predator, anything you say does not matter. If you're going to say it because it needs to be said, because life is valued. These individuals don't care. When I look at the sports doctor that abused the gymnastics team, and he was indifferent to the suffering of those girls. They just simply don't care. The words are wasted on them, but they're not wasted on us, because at those events when they testify, they're in essence educating us as to how vile these individuals are. These individuals lie for a living and enjoy lying. Lying is not just a tool for social survival, which for many of us it is, right? You see something that's ugly, you don't say, well, that's ugly. You say, oh, that's different. For the social predator, lying is a way of life. It's a way of getting away with things, of taking advantage, and lying for the social predator is permissible. They see no issue whatsoever with deception. They lie with great frequency, and many of them can lie very effectively. And that is what is difficult. When you have somebody like Bernard Madoff, who just lied incessantly, clearly a social predator, very difficult to detect the lies, but they do it with such fluidity that it's hard to detect. They take a lot of risks, not only with their own lives, but with the lives of others, and don't hesitate to do so. Many of them live criminal lives. In other words, every day you have social predators that are out there, and you see it on YouTube and TikTok. They're breaking into cars. They're robbing people. They pull up the people or they steal their purses and so forth. Yes, many of them have this criminal life. But many, I would argue most, hide what they do, hide their criminality, and act out in ways that they can't be detected. So they put up a front, but in reality, they're doing things which are in fact antisocial, that in fact are predatory. We certainly see this with individuals who on the front may be a clinician, but at the same time, as we saw with the Olympic athletes in gymnastics, they're taking advantage of their bodies and so forth. Why do they do this? One of the answers that I was being interviewed by Wolf Blitzer, and he asked me the same question. And I said, Wolf, sometimes they do it because they can. And that's hard to accept, that you have someone with no conscience, with no remorse, and they do things because they can. That is so against what most of us believe in. But that's how the predator behaves. And you can see it by the things they say, the things they do, and the things they believe. And they tend to be things that are either toxic, dangerous, or they always take advantage of someone. Their criminal lifestyle may be hidden, or it may be very overt. But the only way to detect it is through their behavior, number one, the things they say, how they undervalue others, the way they refer to, for instance, women or children or people that are gay or have alternate lifestyles. The minute you see them degrading them, because in many ways they share traits with the narcissist in that the social predator overvalues themselves but always devalues others. And they can be very insincere in the way that they act. They will seek to perform acts that you say, okay, at best that's adventurous, at worst that is really outrageous. And they can shock people by the things that they do, such as, I thought it'd be funny to set an animal on fire or light up the tail of a cat or some sick thing. And people may laugh at that nervously, but what in fact you're seeing is antisocial, predatory behavior, which can be against other humans or it can be against other living things. They just have no conscience. These individuals tend to be highly promiscuous. They brag about how many sexual exploits they've had. They brag about how they manipulated the opposite sex or whoever they're having sex with. They will brag about how they touched a woman or violated a woman or any number of behaviors that sort of shock the conscience. For the social predator, they see it as a mark of pride, and they will brag about how they take advantage of others. Again, physically, mentally, psychologically, or financially. They are very calloused, extremely calloused. When confronted with an event that has taken place or something that they've done, they are just calloused in a way that is shocking. You just wonder, why aren't they bothered by this? They just slap somebody so hard they knocked them out. We've seen videos of women being punched in the elevator and the man just walks away like nothing happened. That callousness should be a red flag of just the extreme amount of antisocial, psychopathic, social predation, where they're not bothered at all. Because they are indifferent to the suffering of others, they will repeat over and over the very same violations. So those victims who pled for their life with when Ted Bundy, the serial killer / social predator, was out there, they do not learn from that. They do not learn anything at all from the suffering of others. In fact, a lot of social predators enjoy the suffering of others. They are and may have sadistic tendencies where they like to torture an animal, where they like to walk by somebody and trip them, or where I recently read of an individual who used a razor blade to just slash at people as they walked by. The instrument is so sharp it takes several seconds before they realize that they've been cut. Listen to what the victims say. They are indifferent to the suffering. And no matter how much you plead, no matter how much you beg, no matter how much you say, look, the kids need the food or they need this or that, they simply do not care. They can be very haughty and opinionated. In fact, many times they're very opinionated and they don't like the ideas and the thoughts of others. They see themselves as supremely gifted and have answers when in fact they're not. They can value you this instant, especially when you praise them. But the minute you criticize them, the minute you turn on them, they devalue you. And they devalue you horribly. They can be very vile, they can be very mean, they can say very noxious things. So one minute you're working with them, you do something wrong, the next minute you're completely devalued. And you say, how can somebody turn that quickly? Social predators can. They don't take responsibility. Do not expect a social predator to take responsibility. They simply don't care. Everything is always somebody else's fault. They may even blame it on the victim. I've heard them saying in interviews, well, look at the way she was dressed. She deserved to be raped. I mean, it just shocks the conscience that anybody can think like that the victim is the person responsible. They have no self-restraint, irresponsible, violators of human rights, and they are very impulsive. They can, all of a sudden, in an instant, give something really no appreciable amount of thought, and they act on it. Let's go rob a bank. Let's go, let's go rob somebody on the street. Very impulsive many times in the things they do. And obviously, the more impulsive that they are, the greater the chance that they're going to come into contact with law enforcement. The other thing I find with social predator is that they hold grudges, and they hold them for a very long time. You certainly see this with the mafia. I mean, anybody in a mafia is a social predator. And the fact that they hold grudges and that there are paybacks is incredible. They will hold on to things for years and then use that to pay others back. Anytime I hear someone say, well, they're going to get their due, I'm going to pay them back at some future date, I'm looking at social predation. I'm looking at social predation. And this is part and parcel of these individuals. Can they be charming? Yes. Can they be funny? Yes. Can they be entertaining? Yes. But they can also be toxic. They can be dangerous. They can be horrendous. They can be all these things. They are chameleon-like. They can shapeshift. One minute they're funny, the next minute they're vindictive. They tend to have hidden lives. Even their family doesn't always quite know what these individuals are really like. There's a sort of darkness to them. I remember talking to some victims. They said, well, he had a room in the house we weren't allowed to go into. Or he had this locker that we were forbidden to search or something like that. Or sometimes the person has a hidden past. It's like, I don't know what he did in his past. I don't know where he's from. I don't know his family. The things he says about his past have always changed. Or they say, well, I'm a former Navy SEAL, but they don't look like a former Navy SEAL. They don't have any friends that were former Navy SEALs. And they occlude their life by saying, well, it was top secret, or you can't talk about it, and so forth. Trust me, most of the Navy SEALs I know have a variety of friends that are also Navy SEALs. So they can lie easily, they can hide their past. They don't want you to dig, they don't want you to look at their school records. They don't want you to know that they have a criminal history. Speaking of criminal history, anytime you hear of someone that has a long rap sheet, in other words, they have a long criminal record, you are looking at a social predator, period. End of story. 5 robberies, 10 robberies, break-ins, this or that, social predation. They can make people very nervous in the way that they talk. They can create a lot of anxiety because of their instability. You don't know if one minute, as one mother said, I don't know if he's going to be in jail tomorrow or if he's going to get shot. Now that's no way to live. That is the life and the story of many social predators. And obviously, those social predators that do white-collar crimes are less easy to detect. The people that are robbing banks and committing robberies on the street, obviously more easy to detect. What's the bottom line? The bottom line is whether we're looking at psychopathy, which is about 1% of the population of the United States, or let's say antisocial personality disorder, which is anywhere from 4 to 6% of any population. What we're looking at are social predators, and social predators are out there in large numbers. Anything above 1 or 2% is a large enough number. These are the individuals responsible for most of the crime that's committed. These are the individuals that are responsible for most of the harm that is committed. These are the individuals that leave us to the point where you feel like, I gotta move out of this neighborhood, or this is not sustainable. Or you work for one and you say, this individual is going to get me arrested. They're asking me to change information, alter information, play with the accounting books. They're putting me at risk. When we look at who leaves a debris field of human suffering behind them, clearly it is the antisocial personality. Void of conscience, void of any concern. They feel it's okay to violate human rights. They don't respect anyone but themselves, and they only value themselves. So if you know someone that has these traits, and they can be in any profession, in fact, in some professions you find them in higher numbers. If you know someone like this, just remember that distancing yourself from them is really the best way to deal with them, because they only care about themselves. You're not going to fix them. There is no pill for fixing the sociopath or the psychopath or the social predator. That takes heroic efforts on their part and the part of others, which is not something that we all possess. If you're in a relationship with someone like this, just be aware that you are in danger. Not sometimes, always, because at a minimum, you will suffer psychologically and emotionally, and most likely financially. If you are concerned, please take a look at the checklist in my book, Dangerous Personality, and go through that list. Whether it's somebody you're going to date, somebody that you work for, somebody that's running for office, someone that you just read about that has been charged with some sort of crime, and say, how many of the traits, how many of the behaviors do I see? And that will give you greater confidence. Now, these checklists are based on what victims had related in their own terms. In the end, we are responsible for our own security. We are responsible for each other and our families. As I said in Dangerous Personalities, you have no social obligation ever to be victimized, but you do have a social obligation to yourself and to others to educate yourself, as you are here, and to observe. And if you observe the traits of the social predator, then beware, or share it with other people, because they will take advantage of you physically, mentally, psychologically, or emotionally, or financially. And that is our responsibility. So it's a heavy topic. It's one that I've wanted to talk about for a long time, because their influence on all of us is so great, whether we pay higher insurance premiums or we have to tell our children, be in the house before it gets dark. Whatever effect they have in society, the social predator, it's never healthy, it's never good. It's always working against us, and it's working against you. So prepare yourself with knowledge, be observant, never hesitate to check through that social predator checklist and say, oh my gosh, these behaviors are so similar to what I'm witnessing. And tell yourself, I am in danger or my family's in danger. Now, how do I get out of this? So I wish you well. So thank you for your time. If you're interested in more information here in people watching, please subscribe to my channel, ring the bell, and thank you for sharing this time with me.